What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Super grateful to have you here. Definitely appreciate your time. And today we have a very special guest for you. He is actually a TEDx speaker, a serial entrepreneur, and is currently serving as the CEO of Stradesso and a partner and chief strategy officer of Jim Advertising. And he actually recently authored a book, Honest to Greatness: How Today's Greatest Leaders Use Brutal Honesty to Achieve Massive Success. His articles on business, leadership, and entrepreneurship regularly appear in Inc., Forbes, the Huffington Post, and more. And his work at Jim has been featured in CNBC, Yahoo, Bloomberg, and has earned many awards, including a Telly, Pixie, Communicator, Aurora, Davy, and W3 awards. I don't know where you have space to fit all those, man. But he also holds a BA in economics from Brandeis University and an MBA from Columbia Business School. And these are actually three very interesting facts I didn't know about you, but he's a three-time New England figure skating champion, a black belt in Taekwondo, and a SAG/AFTRA professional actor. So that's very cool. So please welcome to the show, Peter Kozodoy.
Dude,
great to be here.
So you're such a slacker, Peter. You don't do anything. All day you're sitting on your hands. You know what I mean? There's all these people out there doing stuff, and you act like you've ever done something in this world, man. That's an awesome resume.
I get very restless.
I love it. It sounds like you like to keep moving and get your stuff done. Well,
I appreciate it.
I'm not going to pretend that I've done a whole bunch of research and know everything that's going on. So, but I am going to say that I'm totally intrigued and fascinated by the book title. So since I haven't checked in, can you give me like a 2-minute synopsis of what it's about and where you're coming from?
You bet. Well, the first thing you guys have to know is I never sat down to write about, speak about, or give a shit about honesty. Quite frankly, I don't even consider myself a very honest person. This started when I turned 30, freaked out that I hadn't been doing enough. Now, you guys know that's funny because you read my bio. And I knew somewhere inside me was a book, and I really wanted to be an author. So I sat down to write what I thought was a marketing book. I had run a marketing agency. I had started at zero, grown it into an Inc. 5000 international agency. And I was fascinated with the companies we worked with, some of which took our growth strategies and just like crushed it. And others could not get out of their own way. They just blew up on the launch pad. And I was just always fascinated with this. And I never really, gave it much like sit down and let me figure this out until years later when I had my own sort of crisis of honesty. It's like, who am I really, what do I honestly want to do with my life? And that's when it all kind of clicked into place, that like the topic that I was obsessed with was the honesty and dishonesty within these organizations we worked with. Meanwhile, I had all these incredible case studies I had been collecting of organizations that had used honesty strategically, not as a touchy-feely core value, but as like a business strategy to just go out and crush it. So I sat down, I wrote this book about what I thought was honesty in marketing, but when I got a literary agent, he was like, this is great, but this is actually a book about honesty. And I was like, well, I don't care about honesty. I don't know what you're talking about. It's clearly not a book about honesty, so you can't be very good at your job. And then when I flipped back through it, I was like, damn it, like he's absolutely right. This is a book, this is much bigger than just marketing. This is at the core of what makes a great leader and what makes a great organization. And it's staring me in the face because we all learn at 4 years old that honesty is the best policy. Trust me, guys, like I'm a massive cynic. I am the last person on earth to write a book about honesty. It surprises me every day, but I really do know that it is the root of what makes people and organizations great.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know. I mean, if something like that comes out, when you sit down to do one thing, and as rising entrepreneurs, right, we all have like these million ideas that we want to do and these things that we can do and these things that we do. But when you sit down, like, I don't know, most of us have had that experience where you sit down to create one thing and something else comes out and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's not from me necessarily. Like it's my words, it's my pen. I did the work, but like I didn't know that was going to happen. And those are the things that not only transform the industry, the space, the market, but transform us as entrepreneurs. When we uncover this thing from within, that's a like universal truth. You didn't set out for this thing. You didn't set out to do that, but it's what came. And then you decided, despite all the other ideas and things you can go to, you know what? you're right. This is bigger than I thought. And I'm going to support and I'm going to step in to this thing that I didn't know it was, that it can be, even though it's not my thing. And I think that's just really interesting and eye-opening for people that are like, well, I'm not sure about this. I don't see the whole, like, it's not what I thought. It's not what I wanted. Instead of giving up on the project, to double down and pursue it. I mean, it's just pretty cool.
Absolutely. And actually, I want to get more into honesty and sort of like the basis, what's going on in the book. But I'd like to dig in a little bit, Peter, into that struggle, like that resistance that you felt when, the editor came back, or, the person came back and said, like, this is actually a book about honesty. And you're like, no, it's not. Like what, like walk us through that, like that process. What happened in your mind to actually go from, standing on your marketing book to accepting that maybe this is, something different?
So you two have hit the nail on the head that, and I have a quote that I've repeated ad nauseum, which is entrepreneurship is 10% about business, 100% about people, and 1,000% about the self. Everything we do as business owners is self-exploration. And the book, it turns out, was no different. I changed the book and the book changed me over time. And so, not to get ridiculously deep, only 7 minutes into our talk here, but it begs the question, was that always who I really was and it just needed a catalyst to come out? Or did I realize, oh, this isn't what I intended, but I'm going to go do it anyway? Maybe I'll never know, right? But the point is, I think if we allow ourselves the creative space to bring all of our ideas and the reflections we get back from others as we move through this thing called life, I think we end up in a spot where if we're open-minded enough, we can be led to our own version of greatness. Because honesty is an act of attrition. It's not about adding stuff, it's about removing stuff, removing bullshit, removing self-limiting beliefs, removing blockers to where I think we would naturally want to go, whether we know naturally where we want to go or whether others are sort of ushering us down the bowling lane with the bumpers on the side that I needed up until I was 15 years old. You're not recording this, right? Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's been a very interesting journey. And I think, Corey, one of the biggest things I had to overcome was, what does honesty mean? I think as a person who grew up obsessed with profit, I love money. I don't know if you guys love money. I love money. This is not an ethics book. This is a book about making crap tons of money. I want to be very clear about that. And then going to Columbia Business School in New York, right? Ivy League. It's like, we don't sit around necessarily and talk about honesty. We talk about like which yachts and jets we're going to buy one day. So I think I had to eliminate my own internal struggle with what honesty means, what it means to me. And as I define it in the book, like, honesty is not just a core value. Like, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell people the truth. That's a terrible idea. I never recommend that. There's a great example in the book that one of the CEOs says. He's like, if you're flying on a plane and the pilots come over the intercom and they're like, well, folks, I've never seen storm clouds like that before. Please put on your seatbelts. I have no idea if we're going to be able to get through this or not. Is it honest? Yes. But is it helpful? Absolutely not. So honesty and strategic honesty is about much more than just telling the truth. Sometimes it means that, but other times it means much, much more.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
You had a term in there, and I don't usually write stuff down either. So I wrote, I just like the wording. You said, when I had my own crisis of honesty. So I want to dig into that term because I don't know what it means to you, but my brain was going into all kinds of things, and I think it's a really cool term. So kind of dig in. What's a crisis? What was yours, and what is a crisis of honesty?
I was always what I will lightly refer to as a high achiever. I'm obsessed with learning. I'm obsessed with mastering stuff. When I was 17, I had been figure skating very competitively since I was 3. I was convinced that over the next year, after being 17, that I would most likely get to the Olympics and absolutely attend Harvard, which was like my lifelong dream, had forever. Grew up in Boston, right? I was just Harvard all the way. By 18, I had gotten injured again and missed the Olympics, and I had not gotten into Harvard. They sent me a nice letter saying thank you, but no thank you. And it took a long time for me to come to terms with those failures in my head. I'd moved on the surface, but I think reflecting back now, right, hindsight's nice. As I turned 30 and realized like I hadn't quite done enough with my life, what I really realized was that I had 2 massive chips on my shoulder that I was never able to get off. And so when I was able to get honest, like honest about who I really was, and that I was this person with these massive goals, and that, yes, I was the type of person and am the type of person to do absolutely anything it takes, what it honestly takes to achieve things like writing a book and appearing on podcasts and growing a multi-million-dollar company. That's what I mean by my own crisis of honesty. And that, honestly, guys, is when I learned that honesty is not just good for marketing and organizations, it's also good for us as people. It really is the key that unlocks the door to us being able to move forward in our own lives.
It sounds like because honesty has so I'm big on words and how they can mean different things to different people and everything else, right? And honesty has connotations just because, again, honesty is the best policy. And so we have things like truth, we have things like facts, we have things like integrity, right? Truth is never truth because we don't know actually. Like, the truth is only the truth that we know right now. And then when new facts come out, the truth is going to change. It's like the world was flat, now it's round. We were the center of the universe. We're not. All these things that we were going to be able to go wherever we wanted to in the winter, in the spring. Then we weren't, right? You just never know what truth changes because we don't know something. But it sounds like in the honesty that you're talking about, there's a lot of integrity. It seems like there's a focus of integrity just from what you're saying of the self, right? And what is the situation? Like you talk about, okay, I was a world-class figure skater, and when you've dedicated yourself from the time you're 3 to that, see the thing about I'm not obviously ever close to Olympian, but the thing about it is to be an Olympian, you have this small window where you have to be perfect and the stars have to align for health, for injury. When you're jumping on hard surface, like you're attacking your body all day since you were 3, and you have to hope that you're in this space, and you weren't, but it doesn't, and you can, in your mind, you can go, well, I mean, that wasn't my fault. I got injured. I did, but you had that chip on your shoulder 12 years later. And you want to get into Harvard. And when you're somebody who will do anything that it takes to get what you want, and you assume responsibility for things and take extreme ownership, when you don't get them, there's no choice but to beat yourself up because you didn't do enough. But some things but if you're honest, some things you can do enough. And then you got to look at like, okay, which part of these happened for me and not to me? And that's kind of my thing. Is like where, and okay, I didn't get there, but look at my life right now. What would my life have been like if I gotten the things I wanted? It wouldn't have been what it is now. Would it have been better? You'll never know. But I don't know. I'm really fascinated by that looking at yourself with integrity and honesty and how that impacts your business and your life and everything else you're doing. So
that's a good distinction, man. I really like the bringing integrity into that because that really involves self, right? And that involves how we think about ourselves, what we think about ourselves, and how we portray ourselves to everyone else in the world. And, when you mentioned attrition being key, like that to me resonates really, really deeply because I've known that in my own life, there's been periods of, time where I'm trying to change an aspect of myself or improve, quote unquote, improve something. And I'm trying to add habits, right? I'm trying to add, I got to start eating this stuff and I got to, do some extra workouts, and like, adding things is actually never the answer. Removing things is how we get to our truth and, honestly, who we are as people, that integrity that we can bring to the world. And I think, just on that personal development side, like that is such an important piece of information for everyone. And then of course it relates into business. It relates into being a good leader, leading a team and so forth, or being part of a team even. So I really, it's important to know that removing layers is actually the path to freedom, right? The path to being honest and having integrity with who we are in this life. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely right.
So you look back to your this, and it's just so interesting because I have an 18-year-old that's ready to go to college and everything. And it's just, you look back and I have a 15-year-old who thinks they're supposed to know their entire life. And you seem, Peter, like someone who liked to know their entire life. Like someone who like, you want to plan out 6-7 years because the more you like, If you see it, you can do it. Right. And,
That's right.
but there's traps in that, because you cannot know what's going to happen 5-6 years from now, 6 months from now, right? If Corona comes back, you never know. So it's just interesting for me, because I was not that way. When I was 18, I was like, I don't know what the heck I want to do. And I'm just going to go to college and like, hopefully figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't understand that part when I see it in my child and I see the stress. And then I understand that if you don't make amends with, you're not in control of everything, it can damage you down the road. But then that damage can filter into the things you do, the way you interact with other people, and that can affect your business. That can affect. So as you uncovered this, as you started to realize that you had this crisis of honesty in your life, what were the steps? What did you do to sort of accept that, to move on, to be okay with it?
I started creating. I started creating things like the book. I branched out and created other businesses. I just took to learn as much as I possibly could, because I knew that if other people had done it, it was all possible. And so then my quest was, how do I figure out how everyone else has done it as quickly as possible? And, to your earlier point, part of honesty and the definition of honesty is thinking long term. It has to be, because you're right. We don't know what coronavirus is going to do between now and the next 6 or 12 or 18 months, but we do know it's not going to be around forever. So I think the question a lot of people fail to ask themselves is, what honest actions am I taking today that's going to set me up for 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now? That's how Warren Buffett became Warren Buffett. That guy could not care less what's happening today. He's thinking about what's happening in the next century and what businesses are going to be around then. That's how you become a billionaire, and that's how you achieve what your end goal is. Because I've always been obsessed with this idea that, like, we are going to get to the end of our lives. That's a truth. And at that point, when we look back, what will we all think? Will we all be able to say, well, at least I was honest. At least I went for it. At least I. So that's been a guiding principle for me for a very long time, luckily, because it's helped me make long-term choices from a very early age, which it turns out, at the time it just made sense, but it turns out that's actually a key to using honesty to achieve massive success.
So when you have that focus, though, when you have that focus and this is what I'm doing, but then life says, no, you're not, right? You're injured now. We're not going to take you at this time. When you have that, right? Because then that's hitting a wall that for some people can destroy them. For some people, they got to find a way around it. So like, what'd you do there? Like what happened when you go, damn, I had this plan. I knew it was going to happen. It didn't happen. How do you adjust to that as somebody who likes to plan and achieve?
So at the time, it was devastating. And I experienced what I now know is called cognitive dissonance for a very long time. Where like, I thought I was on path A, now I'm on path B. What the hell? And I had a really hard time moving myself one or the other. Maybe you guys can relate. Now I much more understand that every achievement we have is just a vehicle to emotion. Let me say that again, because it's really important. Everything we do, every goal we have, we move towards, is just a vehicle to emotion. What I mean by that is, at the end of the day, what you're left with is fulfillment in achieving the goal. And if that's really what we're after, then the goal can change, right? There are many things we all want to do. There are many things that make up who we are. So figure skating's, falling on my ass in tights isn't going to be one of them. Well, that's how I met my wife. Maybe that was the purpose of that. And so now I have other goals that I can do that don't require me to have 15-year-old knees. I can have 80-year-old knees and a 34-year-old's body. So now I can do other things, and so I've really learned to have much better perspective about what it is that really matters to us, to our brain chemistry. Like, is it landing a triple Lutz at the Olympics? Is that that's my life achievement? Of course not. It's the feeling of having done something and in the moment come through.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man, because when I've thought about this too, as we set goals, like when you get there, now what, right? What's next? Like you have to set another goal. So it absolutely is about the emotion, received in the moment of attaining the thing that we set out to attain. And that is what fulfills us. It's not the goal itself. I mean, even though those things are nice, they're material, they fade, right? They don't necessarily matter in reality. of who we are and what makes us happy. So I love what you said. It's like, it's literally the vehicle to emotion. That makes a lot of sense. And, you know, we've kind of been talking a lot about sort of like the personal truth and honesty. I'm interested to dig in a little bit into the organizational side. I don't know,
Can I
Nathan, did you
jump
have
in with
another
something?
question?
Yeah, before we switch, I just wanted to comment on that vehicle of emotion, because I think I had that discovery kind of the other day. Is, you know, again, talking to my daughter that is so future thinking and is 15 and can't, you know, where am I going to go to school? How am I going to make money? How am I going to, and it's anxiety. It's not just future thinking, but it's literally up at night. It's literally 11 o'clock at night asking, like, I don't like, and obsessing over it. And I was like, man, because I never had that. So I gotta look at it like, but I have it now. Like, and as a I never had it as a child, but as an adult I have it. And I study success, and I hang out with super successful people, and I study successful people. And I told her, when school went out for Corona and you woke up at 10 o'clock and did your work by 12, and when you didn't know an answer, you called a friend or looked it up, and your brother was sleeping still, right? That when you had a project and you start it 4 days before it's due and then finish the day before it's due, those are habits of success, right? I'm telling her, it doesn't matter what exactly you do, because what you do can change. But if you have the habit of success, and then as I was talking, I realized that, you know what it is. It doesn't matter where you go to school, where you're working, what you're working, or what you're doing. If you do the hard things every day that you know you needed to do to push the needle, and when you do the thing, like, I don't want to do this, but you do it, and then you're like, I'm glad I did it. If you do those things every day, it doesn't matter to me. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, what I'm achieving, how much money I have, or where I'm going. If I know I'm doing what I can to push the needle, then I'm getting my vehicle to emotion of being proud of myself, self-esteem, loving myself, and being able to share that. So I just wanted to kind of share that real quick.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. So I don't know, Peter, are you with us still?
Frozen?
Looks like we're a little frozen.
I am.
Okay,
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah, I can
So
hear you guys.
Nathan, Perils and
Okay.
Perils.
Yeah. So this is my favorite little part that we added recently to season 2. It's called Perils and Pearls. So on the broken road of becoming a rising entrepreneur, you've done things that no one else has done. You especially have done all kinds of things that no one else has done. And on that path, you've seen perils that no one else has seen. And you've stumbled into pits and falls that other people haven't. And in that, you've discovered pearls of wisdom, pearls to get people to either avoid that peril or get out of it. And so we would like to know, in your broken road as a rising entrepreneur, what is the biggest peril that you faced, and what's a pearl to help us avoid it or get out of it? I think we got an internet connection thing.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Now we can hear.
Yeah,
Did you hear my question by chance?
All right, cool. Yeah, I got it. I think now, especially after going to Columbia Business School and getting an MBA, it turns out I didn't fundamentally understand what business actually is. When I started my first company, I was like, oh, we're a video production company. We're going to make $800 television spots for local car dealers. By the way, guys, that's exactly as glamorous as it sounds. I do not recommend. And at the time, I remember thinking, like, oh, if I just like make a ton more of these, like, I'll be a million. Work out, like, I'd have to work 90-hour weeks forever. Like, so I just fundamentally misunderstood that, like, all business is a cash flow. Entrepreneurs would do very well. And this is like, when I'm coaching other entrepreneurs, this is probably 90% of our first session. You must build a cash flow. Imagine if you're an investor buying a cash flow, right? You don't want to operate it. It's going to run by itself. It's going to spit off consistent profits. It's going to have all kinds of nice features, like customers pay you in advance, and that, like, you're buying a cash flow. That's why real estate does so well. Because marketplace exists, people have to live and work in places, and all those people are going to pay monthly rents. That's cash flow, right? On a fixed building. This is very business. So it does so well.
We're getting a little.
Instead, I thought,
cutting out a little bit, Peter.
Thought about it much more. You know, what are we like at? Much fundamental. Rejoin.
Yeah. It like we got like half of what you.
Yeah, you're digging. You're just dropping into
No.
gold about cost and cash flow, and then it cut out.
Okay. Do you want to try to rejoin?
I don't know. I don't know if that would help. Do you mind trying to rejoin real quick?
No, not at all. I'll leave and come back. Hold
All
on.
right.
Awesome. It's good stuff.
I know he's just getting into the goal.
I know.
We'll
But I'm
we'll
like, that's how we're looking at the business model canvas. It's a whole thing we didn't even know it was.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Exactly. We'll just when he jumps back in, we'll just start. Just re-ask the question.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it seems like because it's not. I don't think it's my internet, right?
It's not. I don't think it's us because we haven't had it. There it is.
Okay.
Let's see.
I was gonna say now you're sideways.
Oh, there we go. Now we're styling.
Is that any better, guys?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Seems good. So what I'm gonna do is, if we can, I'm gonna ask the question again and just kind of start from there. So basically, this is Perils and Pearls, and on the broken road of becoming a rising entrepreneur, you've traveled down paths that other people haven't traveled down, and you've encountered perils and pitfalls that you've fallen into that other people haven't. And so in doing that, you learn pearls of wisdom to either avoid or climb out of that peril. And so our question to you is, over the years, what's the biggest peril that you've fallen into, and what pearl can help us avoid that or climb out of it?
Yeah, one of the biggest, and I especially got wise to this after getting an MBA at Columbia, is that I fundamentally misunderstood what a business even is. Like in the beginning, we started a video production company. We were making $800 television spots for local car dealers, which was not glamorous at all, trust me. And so I used to think like, oh, if only we could do more of this, we'd be millionaires. I'm like, that's not true. The math doesn't work out. Like that would be a terrible business. So I didn't like understand that like all business is a cash flow. You're buying a cash flow. It's how the stock market trades. It's how real estate trades. And if we look at it a lot more fundamentally, and by the way, this is like 90% of what I do with my entrepreneurs that I coach, is like returning to, if you're going to build a cash flow to sustain you for the rest of your life, what's the best way to put those pieces together so that you don't have to work 80 hours a week, you don't even have to work 8 hours a week, that it runs itself, that it spits off consistent profits, that it sells itself. There are ways to put together businesses in which they're inherently better and more valuable. I just never thought of it that way. I had to learn each individual piece over 10 years and then step back and look at the whole and be like, oh, this is a pumpkin pie. I thought it was a Tonka truck. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is. I'm gonna say that we Corey and I, or especially like me, I'm real big into marketing and messages and the channels to get that. And I've tried to build a business around that. I may have a flooring business that does really well, and I understand it because I've worked in other flooring. Like I understand that on a grander scale. But then there's this thing that I know how to do, and I didn't translate that. Oh, there's this bigger picture. There's more to the business than just the channel. There's there's the costs, and there's the partners, and there's all these other things that I didn't know. When you understand that, I told Corey where I'm at right now is I need to build assets for my family that are here, even if I'm not. I mean, this whole Corona thing was scary, you know what I mean? And like, what happens if the unexpected happens? And man, everything I built is dependent on me being there to support it. And so rising entrepreneurs, like that's kind of a big difference that we as practitioners, if you can make that hump from practitioner to, some people say entrepreneur, right? If you look at Gerber's book, that's the big difference, is the entrepreneur is looking at the systems and the process to deliver the value, not necessarily what can I do to be more valuable. And you need to do that for your organization. You need to be as valuable as you can. What can I do to be more valuable for the organization, but not how can this organization build on my value and just use that. So I think that's huge. And I got it. Like, again, I mean, I've been in this game for 12 years and like I'm just uncovering this myself and feel like I need education in the depths of these different parts that I've never considered, the other half of my brain that I don't usually use. And so I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, as we're creative and we have all these things, we want to do these things, but we think we're entrepreneurs, but we don't realize like we have this drive to do this thing. And if we become an entrepreneur, we can do it on a bigger scale. We can have the lifestyle that we want because the cash flow supports the lifestyle, and we support the cash flow with our talents, with our expertise. So man, that's huge. I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
But yeah, fundamentally, right, understanding that cash flow is the key of the business. And I myself am learning this as well. And I have not, I've been in it for half your time, Nathan. You know, like I've been in as an entrepreneur, self-employed, if you will, for the last 6 years. And before that, it was all, you know, like go to work, 9 to 5, do the status quo. So I think a lot of people, you know, could probably relate to the idea when you start thinking about going into business for yourself. You start thinking about like, what skills do I have? What can I do? What can I provide to the market to create some kind of business? And while that is a smart place to start, inherently that's the wrong way to build a business, right, Peter? I mean, that's
Totally.
what you're saying.
Yes.
Is like you
Exactly.
cannot build something around you where you are the focal point of the value you know, exchange. It has to be, you know, so you can remove yourself from it at some point in the future. And if you're not thinking about that, you know, like that's kind of why it's been tough for me for the last 6 years getting started, you know?
And you know, and again, I know there's no way you can explain to people because there's so many different dynamics, but it's when you said you looked at all the different parts, and then you could scale back, and it's not a Tonka truck, it's a pumpkin pie. Like that's literally like, because it's that different. It's not even, we're not even in the same category of what you thought it was, and that's
right.
So powerful. And then, but then, like you said, the different pieces, the way that you adjust them and build it determines how good a cash flow is that. Is this purchasable? Is this, you know, and again, I mean, I've had a friend who's brilliant at this, who's done 25 businesses that he's built and sold because they're cash machines that, you know, and systems. And I've worked for him while he built one out. And like, I still didn't get it. And he's been telling me, bro, that's not what you're supposed to do. Like, and I'm like, nah, but I'm good at this. Yeah, I know you're good at it, but remember when we had a flooring business and I never touched a trowel and we did 90,000 a month. You remember that? And you know, you're doing good. You're doing your 5 to 10, but like you're wore out. You're tired. Remember when I never and then I was able to sell that business because I never touched the thing. And I still didn't hear it. You know what I mean? You have to go through your experience. But if you're not hearing, if you're like, man, I just want to do my thing and make some money to do my thing, that's great, but there's systems and processes and strategies that can help you make a whole bunch more money doing the same thing, which is what I do with my flooring now. I still am the practitioner because I love it, but I do 2 jobs a month and I get paid really, really, really well to do those jobs. And if it's not that, like, it's cool, I'm good. And so you do that with coaching people. And so you have this book of honesty. What is the main way, aside from the book, that's going to give people so much insight to themselves and how they can, and how do you help people in the market? What do you do to serve people? Because you're so brilliant and done so much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So my main, I would say my favorite thing to do is work with entrepreneurs because they have the power to change themselves. I work with corporations too, and we're working with a Fortune 500 energy company right now. They're great, but making change is years and years and years and years and years. I don't have that many lifetimes, gentlemen. So, you know, working with entrepreneurs, it's like, here's the problem. And they're like, light bulb, let's go fix this. Awesome. So the way I do that is a couple different ways. I have some private clients who want to move really, really fast. I run what I call a B2B boot camp program, which is 8 weeks of very hardcore hands-on training. It's literally like, I'm gonna kick your ass. You're going to transform your entire business. I give you all the tools and templates and scripts and tech and literally everything you need to build your cash flow. And of course, you know, I have some B2B entrepreneurs in that, but also B2C entrepreneurs who want to figure out how to take their consumer model and package it and sell it to businesses for 10 times the price. Had a lot of success doing that. If you look at the Inc. 500, Inc. 5000, most of them are B2B. There's a reason for that. You know, it's a lot easier to grow an amazing, very successful business selling 50,000 products at a time than it is to sell $5 products at a time, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, food for thought. And then the final thing I do is Forum, which is a monthly Zoom call just like this. And we have a very strict process. Everyone comes and reports their month. And it's really about what we call the 5%. It's the 5% of what's really vulnerably going on at what happened that is the best, and then the lowest 5% of what's really, really happening in your life across business, personal, and family. And that system is the same system run by YPO and EO. I don't know if you guys are familiar, Young Presidents Organization and Entrepreneurs Organization. You have to have 7- and 8-figure businesses to get into those.
Okay.
And so once I did, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing, because every business problem that we think is a business problem is really a personal problem in disguise. 100% of the time, not 99% of the time, 100% of the time. And so I was like, well, I needed this when I was doing 200, 500, 700,000 a year.
Yes.
So I launched that for entrepreneurs. I have 12 in the group. They all meet once a month and they just vulnerably share what is honestly going on. And the transformations, guys, are massive. I absolutely love that program.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Sounds exciting. Honestly, that sounds really exciting. I mean, and you know, it's interesting. I mean, Corey and I are putting together a similar program as far as sharing your message and how to get it out. But when you're talking about like what it is, it I don't know why. I'm just letting you know, like, kind of pulls in my heartstrings. Sounds like something I'd be interested in and want to know more about. Now, obviously you're working with entrepreneurs that are, I'm assuming now, that are established, that either they were successful in one area and they want to transition that over and build out a cash flow so they have some money to invest in this, or they're making some progress and they want to speed it up, or are you dealing with everybody, even those people that are like, I don't even know yet, I just know I want it? Like, who are you helping the most?
I'm helping people with a similar mindset, which is, I want the shortcut. I don't want to go through what Peter went through and have to have my own crisis of honesty and build a pumpkin pie. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I have entrepreneurs I work with that do many millions a year. Last year, I worked with an entrepreneur that was at 5. We took her to 20. And this year, I'm working with someone who has a full-time job, wants to launch his business, and has been blown away that in 4 months, we were able to build him an incredible bit. Like, he is going to change the world with this business. And he came to me and was like, clearly you've done this. I don't want to struggle bust this thing, right? I have kids. I need to get there fast. I need to do it right. And I admire that. I'm like, okay, great. You know, if you have that attitude, let's go.
That's awesome.
I love that. And so, you know, rising entrepreneurs, if you're sitting there and you're going, all right, because typically people that listen to podcasts, we listen to it because we want to save time, right? Like, I listen to podcasts when I'm driving or I'm on the job or I'm doing something else. That's why I love it. And so you're probably listening to this because you like to save time, and you understand, like, that's one of the biggest challenges that people come to us with is their time. And there's 2 different kinds of time, right? Like, some people look at an 8-week boot camp and be like, man, that's going to be a lot of time to go through and really do that and build that out. That's going to take hours of me every day for 8 weeks or whatever. And they're looking at it like that's a lot of time. And that is a lot of time, but there's a different ways to look at time, because if that 8 weeks saves you 8 years, what is the time?
Right.
Because when we look at that, guys, like, because I'm a victim of that too, is an hour here, you know, is it, if I save an hour by learning this, or I save $1,000 by learning this myself instead of hiring the person that knows how to do it, and then, like, I saved that $1,000, but how long does it take me to actually understand the thing and earn that 1,000 back, right? And so if you're you know, understand again what Peter said, every business problem is a personal problem, right? It's you reach the limits to which you can have success. And so we love to work with rising entrepreneurs for the same reason, is because you understand that the heights of your success are built on the heights the foundation of yourself that you build. But then Peter also had that doesn't mean that you are everything. It doesn't mean that you are the thing like, you leverage you as a foundation, but you don't have to be all the pieces, right? Of the building. And I don't think that way. And if you don't think that way, if you've got a thing you know you love to do, because like Corey and I, a lot of times the people that tend to resonate with us are people that are helping others level up, like physically, emotionally, spiritually, to elevate the collective experience of the world, right? And when you're trying to do that, you've got this thing that you're passionate about that you know the world needs. And that's what drives you to share, to do all the work, to go on the mission to get it out. And when you're like that, it's so awesome. But I can promise you, from me and a lot of people I've met, you're missing the other half of the business model. You're missing the part that allows you to be able to do that. People want to be, I know there's some people like, it's not about the money, it's about the impact, right? But if you don't have income to support the impact dries up. If you don't have money to share your message, you can only talk to the people you see. And so I come from that. I just want to help people first, but I understand that the reason I can't help people is because I don't make money. I spend the money I make in flooring to share a message with people. Well, if I can make money on that message, then I don't have to do right. But if you don't have somebody that is going to guide you through the process of understanding the whole thing and how to leverage what you're good at, you're going to spin wheels for not 8 weeks, not months, but years. And so, but I like the variety of ways you have to help people. So if they want to get that help, if they want the perspective that they're missing, that's keeping them from the success that they dream about, how do they get a hold of you? Like where do they go to be able to get the hookup?
Absolutely. So head to honest2greatness.com or Google Peter Kozodoy, Kozodoy. It's pointing you to the same place. Take my 21 question honesty quiz if you are truly honest enough to see how honest you are. And make sure you share those results on social. I repost them when people tag me.
Awesome.
I'm gonna say the same thing I said. We had another guest who did a quiz, and I've tried. And if you're a rising entrepreneur that's ever tried to build a quiz for your industry, you understand how freaking hard it is. So I feel like if somebody for an industry that you're interested in finishes a quiz, like the effort that it goes through to give you value, for them to give value, to segment where you are. Like people, like if you're a marketer, you know that quizzes are used to segment you, so I know who I'm talking to. But if you understand that sometimes your biggest problem is you don't know how to segment yourself. You don't know what you actually need help with. You don't know what category, where am I struggling with my honesty? What do I need help with? Like, where am I? And so if there's a quiz in the area of somebody that clearly has put in the time and effort and has the expertise, right? And understands this thing. And they've put together a quiz to help you understand more about yourself. And yes, they're trying to get you through a filter process, but through that filter process, you understand where you fit into the game more and where you are. And that alone can be a valuable lesson, let alone what you can get from somebody who puts forth the time and effort to put it through. So if you're struggling with the income, the cash flow, the business side of the thing you want to do with your life, then go take the quiz, figure out how you can be honest with yourself, how your honesty can impact the business, the people that you're trying to help, right? Because you got these people that you're so passionate about helping, right? But there's areas of honesty, I'm sure, that you need to look at that are keeping you from being able to help the people on the level you want to. And so, man, go check out that quiz.
Yeah.
And level through that. So I kind of just want to get that out there, man.
As you can see, Nathan's very passionate as well. So that's awesome. So honesty.
I turned Nathan on this morning. I love it. I want what he's having.
That's it. Right. Yeah. So honest2greatness.com, right?
You got it.
honest2greatness.com, guys. And I'll definitely link all that down in the show notes below. And since we're back on the honesty, I wanted to go ahead and loop back to that question I wanted to ask you, which, as away from the personal side, more on the organizational side, for the entrepreneur, for the business, what are ways, how can we strategically use honesty in our business to actually gain, market share or more profitability or whatever it may be?
Yep. Cool. Great question. So one of the first stories that I tell in the book is about Blockbuster and Netflix. And, everyone knows that Netflix put Blockbuster out of business, but what many of them don't realize is that Blockbuster had years and years to do something about it, to buy Netflix because Netflix offered to be bought, to merge. In fact, at one point, Blockbuster had built Total Access and had 2 million subscribers to its own video streaming platform before someone came in, Carl Icahn, actually, who everyone praises as this incredible investor, and he has been. But he came in as an activist investor to Blockbuster and shut it all down and moved them back to their old business model, to the old way that they knew how to make money, right? Terrible. And so, you guys know how that story ends. But there are a couple of very valuable lessons that we come out of that in business. The first is our assumptions as business owners kill us. They kill us, okay? Nathan earlier talking about Nathan, I describe what you have described as the blind leading the blind. It's like a bunch of people who come out and they're like, I want to inspire everyone, so I'm going to be an influencer and put promotional stuff up. And oh, this is awesome. But actually they're broke and they're trying to inspire themselves and they don't understand how to wrap a business around it. And it's a terrible thing. It makes me so sad. So, I have been able to work with a couple folks like that to help them see that, just like with the coronavirus and on airplanes, you need to put your mask on first before you put the mask onto others. It's one of my favorite phrases.
Mm-hmm.
But so back to business, our assumptions about like, oh, this is what I want to do with my business, or like, oh, this is the passion focal point over here. Like those are what kill us, just like with Blockbuster. Like they assumed their model would work forever and it didn't. The second is communication. When we as entrepreneurs fail to communicate the entire truth with our employees, with our partners, with our suppliers and vendors, when we fail to communicate, then we fail to unlock all the potential that's held up in those conversations, in those brainstorms. I can't tell you how many times over my tenure I've gone into very big businesses to conduct focus groups and interviews, to solve a problem, to build a marketing campaign. Inside of an hour, hour and a half, the lower level employees, the ones that like face with the customers, they have solved the problem. And when I take those insights back to the C-suite, guess what happens? They tell me all the reasons why their frontline employees are wrong. They don't know what they're talking about, or that'll never work. And it's like, wait a second, they're the ones with the customers. They know what's true. And yet you're like, that's what you literally, they've paid us like multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring them this result, and they're still denying it. So one time I had a client even tell me, well, those Google results from my Google Analytics, like those can't be right. I'm like, listen, buddy, if I had that much pull with Google, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Like I would be living on a yacht somewhere.
Yeah.
So, these leadership biases just kill organizations, because someone in your organization, right? And if you're a solopreneur, maybe that's a customer, or maybe it's a freelancer, or maybe it's your mother. Somebody knows the truth. And so if we don't have those open conversations to unlock the truth, then we're just never going to get to the promised land. And the third one is back to exactly what we were talking about, like honest about what it even takes to have a healthy, thriving, profitable, sustainable business. I can't tell, like, even as I was learning it, I was still making those mistakes. Like, oh, Peter, I know I'm not supposed to do that. Stop doing that. And so, it's difficult, but we have all these wonderful examples of folks, and Warren Buffett's my favorite example. All that guy does is buy cash flows. That's it. Very simple. And he does it on huge timelines. He doesn't do it all that often either. And we all know the results he's gotten. So this is not rocket science. It's that people get so involved, back to Nathan, like people's passion points and want to help people. It's like, that's great, but that's not the first thing, right? Well, unless you run a nonprofit, in which case that's the only thing, right? But if you're a for-profit business, guess what? I'm going to tell you a secret. It's for profit. That's what the business is.
Let me tell you,
for.
if you're nonprofit, it's not that easy either. I mean, my wife works for a nonprofit, and I'm trying to help them because there's a lot more people that need to hear their message, and they can't get it out because they don't know what to do. They don't have the money, and they got to pay the salaries of the people that are working at the place so that it can get out, right? And so even if you're nonprofit, like you can start, if you want to start with the passion, that's fine. But you have to support it at the same time. You have to support it with the finances. Like I said, authentic impact. We have a thing we call authentic market value, right? And that is a balance of impact and income. And when you've got those two, when you can measure those two, this is how I'm impacting the industry, people's lives. This is the income that I can use to support that impact when you've got that balance. And so if you are, let me just put this out here, because you talked about assumptions. And like, I am right now digging super, super, super deep into testing, business testing. And because I hated biology, and as soon as you talk about scientific method, I turn it off. I told Corey, it's funny because we're looking at this model and they're telling me to do this thing right here. And this thing doesn't compute to my brain. And so my brain goes, yeah, that makes sense that you should do that. I'll get to that later.
Yeah, right,
and so if you're hearing what Peter's saying, you go, oh my God, that makes sense what he's saying. I'm going to get to that later. That means you need this shit more than anybody. I'm just being real with you because I love you. And that's where I'm at, is I need to set the hypothesis. I'm telling Corey, well, he's like, what if we do this? No, we need to set the hypothesis. And as it comes out of my mouth, I'm like, I want to slap myself because it feels wrong to who I am. But if I want to achieve the things that I want to achieve, I need to elevate who I am. And I might need to add a little bit of opposite and bring in who I think I'm not. So if you're struggling with this, I don't want to be about the money. I don't want to be like, do you understand? Like yes, it is about helping people, but if you don't have this thing, so if you're, one more time, if you feel like, yeah, that sounds right, that sounds like it makes so much sense, what he's saying, I'll get to that eventually. Get to that shit as soon as possible, because that is the end of your possibility. That's the limit of your success, is where you're saying, I'll get to that.
Yep. Or that sounds great for other people, but I don't need that.
Yeah.
Yeah, another
It's another one. Yes,
that
please,
you
yeah.
need this right now for sure.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to touch real quick on the assumptions part, because Nathan and I have really dived deep into this model of testing and experimenting with these different hypotheses that we come up with, and it is a game changer. I mean, when you actually become aware that you're creating assumptions around your business and then just like going to town with them without thinking them through, like that awareness changes everything, right? Because now you can start thinking about it in a calculated way, not just running willy-nilly with every idea that comes into your head. It's like, okay, let's make some hypotheses. Let's prioritize them and then start testing them systematically to figure out whether or not they become true and they work for us. And so I wanted to touch on that, because I think that's where a lot of starting entrepreneurs probably fail, is they just make these assumptions. Oh, this is a great business idea. This is going to work. So-and-so did it. They're talking about all their success. Let me just go to town and just go start doing it. Like that will cause, years and years of struggling for you.
And you need a coach in the areas that are not natural to you. I know there's this thing of only get your strengths better. And then there's the work on your weakness, and there's all these things, but there's weaknesses that you have to overcome for success, period, flat out. And if you can't, you have no chance. And then there's strengths. And then aside from that, so if you're making assumptions, you're making an ass out of you and me business, right? Your business is making an ass out of people. And if you're a natural assumer, if you take the Myers-Briggs, and I don't remember which is, but if you're like a censor, right, and not a judger, and you like things to come in, you're probably going to be like, nah, I don't want this thing. Well, guess what? It is going to be so hard for you to do that by yourself, and you're going to avoid it every time you can. You're going to spin your wheels, and that's going to be the peril that you can't see that you keep falling into. But if you get somebody who this is what they do, if you get someone like Peter who like that's just how they think, and you're like, man, that is what's going to help you be on task and get through that resistance of becoming someone new so much faster, because you're around, you've elevated your average by putting, the average of 5. If you put Peter in your life, if you're not good at this, you've just elevated your average in creating a cash machine, and somebody that looks at the financial structure of how to build your dream. And so if you're struggling with that, just know that the coach is the only way that you can really do this quickly and easily without wasting a shit ton of time.
Yeah, agreed. And so we're kind of reaching the end of our time here. I just wanted to take a moment. Peter, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and experience. Definitely appreciate you, brother. And, this has been just a killer episode for everyone listening. I hope you guys were taking notes. Again, we'll have all the links down below in the description. But Peter, I got one last question for you, man, before we jump off. And really, this is, a little bit more introspective. I'm wondering, if you were to go back, and I know we kind of talked a little bit about your history and everything, but if you were to go back, 5-10 years in the past, and you could actually sit down with yourself, what is one like pearl of wisdom that you would give to yourself in that moment in time?
Stop worrying. Stop worrying. Shut the fuck up. Stop worrying. There's nothing to worry about. That's
a good one.
Dive in a little bit. Just give us a little bit more on that, because how do you, or what do you? It makes sense. It makes sense. Give me a little bit of tactical on that.
Well, first of all, as my business partner likes to say, worry doesn't solve.
One more time. Worry doesn't what?
Worry help. And is to earlier worry does not solve anything. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't help. And the second thing is back to what Corey was saying. It's very dangerous to listen to quote unquote successful folks on podcasts like this, and that's including me, because it's always a retrospective. A bunch of stuff every day for years, and then we look back and we pluck out like 1 or 2 things. And then to you guys' points, everyone's like, oh, I got to go do that. And the next person says something else. It's like, oh, I have to do that. I'm going to be very honest with you guys. It takes a tremendous amount of luck to be successful in business. Can you help yourself be more lucky? Of
Mm.
course, there is strategy, and of course, is all in yourself. But at the end of the day, you also have to get lucky. That's a big component. So in a world where you do everything you can because you're constantly stressing about it, like Nathan's daughter, and you're constantly learning and you're constantly being honest, and you know you have to get lucky, there's nothing to worry about. Just live your life.
I love that.
I love that. And I'll say worrying is paying interest on a debt you don't necessarily owe. You know,
That's right.
you put all this energy into something, and how many times you worry about something, it turns out to be the exact opposite of what you worried about. I mean, it's valuable. So thank
That's
you.
right. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, awesome, Peter. Again, thank you, man, for coming on the show. And for everyone
My pleasure.
listening, go check out Peter's new book, Honest to Greatness. At the time of this podcast coming out, hopefully it will be actually it's launching in August, right? Let's just be clear on the date.
August 11th.
Yes. August 11th. Okay, the book will be ready on August 11th, but you can pre-order it through Amazon, right?
You can, and if you go to peterkozlery.com/bonus, and you want to buy copies for your friends and family, I'm offering bonuses. For entrepreneurs, I have entrepreneurship classes. I have workbooks. I have all kinds of templates and stuff I'm giving away for free. So
awesome. Well, there you go. That's even better. So I will link that down below as well. Peter, thanks again, my man. And I guess we'll catch you on the next one.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you.